In 2023, in Livonia, Michigan, a tragic and deeply disturbing case unfolded involving two young officers. 26-year-old Mathew Ethington and 22-year-old Maria Martin were both serving as police officers with the Detroit Police Department. Their love story began at work. What started as a friendship soon blossomed into a romantic relationship. At the time they met, Mathew was still married but going through a rough divorce, which he claimed was due to an unhappy marriage. Despite the complications surrounding his divorce, Maria was drawn to Mathew. Their bond grew quickly, and soon they moved in together at a Bell Creek Square townhome on Farmington Road. Together, they were raising their young children and seemed, from the outside, like a happy family. On the afternoon of February 19, 2023, a Livonia police officer was responding to a routine alarm in the area. After resolving the matter, he was driving back to the station when he encountered a visibly upset woman waving him down near her car. That woman identified herself as Maria Martin's mother. She was clearly distressed and told the officer she needed help with a welfare check. She explained that she hadn't been able to reach her daughter or her daughter's boyfriend, Mathew. She was especially concerned because their 1-year-old son was also with them. She feared something was terribly wrong. The officer agreed to accompany her. She led him to Maria and Mathew's home, and they arrived around 12:30 p.m. They knocked several times, but no one answered. The house was silent, and it didn't seem like anyone was home. The officer initially suggested they might have gone to work, but Maria's mother was adamant that wasn't the case. Maria had told her earlier that both she and Mathew were off duty that day to work on some personal matters. Maria's mother was deeply uneasy. Her daughter always returned calls promptly, and the silence now was out of character. Still, they had a problem. There was no legal way to enter the house. Just as the officer was considering calling for backup, Maria's mother remembered where they kept the garage door opener. She retrieved it and gave it to the officer. Upon opening the garage, they saw the couple's vehicles parked inside. This confirmed Maria's mother's fears. They hadn't left the house. The interior garage door wasn't locked, allowing the officer to step into the house. He noticed a flight of stairs leading to the living room and proceeded with caution. The downstairs area was empty, so he climbed the stairs. At the top, in the southeast corner of the living room, he discovered the lifeless body of Mathew Ethington. He had suffered a single gunshot wound to the head, fired at close range. A firearm was found near his feet, and shell casings were scattered across the floor. Although it appeared he was only shot once, the room bore signs of significant gunfire. Continuing the search for Maria, the officer moved toward the northwest corner of the room. There, near the couch, he found Maria's body. She was lying in a pool of blood and appeared to have been shot multiple times. Despite his grief over finding two fellow officers dead, the officer pressed on. Maria's mother had mentioned a child in the house. He moved through the home, noting everything that might serve as evidence: placement of the bodies, condition of the house, and any other significant detail. Eventually, he reached the master bedroom, where he heard soft crying. Following the sound, he found the 1-year-old boy. The child was unharmed but confused, exhausted, and wandering around in a dirty diaper. The baby had likely been alone for several hours. The officer called for emergency services and handed the baby to his grandmother, waiting outside. Paramedics arrived shortly afterward and confirmed that both Mathew and Maria were dead. The police secured the scene and launched a full-scale investigation. At first glance, it looked like a domestic dispute that had spiraled out of control. There were no signs of forced entry, and everything pointed inward. Investigators quickly began piecing together what had led to the tragic events of that day. It turned out that Mathew and Maria had been in a relationship for 5 years, and while it had started strong, things had deteriorated significantly after the birth of their child. Mathew had grown increasingly angry, controlling, and manipulative. He would insist on knowing Maria's whereabouts, especially when she went out without him. Because they worked together, it was easy for him to monitor her movements. Despite the abuse, some of it physical, Maria never filed an official report. However, those closest to her noticed the toll it was taking. Eventually, Maria decided she could no longer continue in the relationship. She wanted to break things off, but Mathew wasn't willing to let her go. He believed that if he couldn't have her, then no one else should. Maria's mother shared crucial information with investigators. She recalled receiving a phone call from Maria earlier that morning between 6:30 and 7 a.m. It started as a routine conversation, but quickly became tense when she overheard a male voice, Mathew's. She couldn't make out his exact words, but his tone grew hostile, and a heated argument erupted. Maria's mother tried to de-escalate the situation, but the call ended abruptly. Worried, she gave the couple some time to cool off before trying to reach Maria again. But as the minutes turned to hours with no response, her anxiety turned into panic. She repeatedly tried calling both Mathew and Maria, but neither answered. Given that there was a small child in the house, the situation felt even more urgent. That's when she encountered the police officer and asked for the welfare check that ultimately led to the discovery of the crime scene. Following a thorough investigation and evidence collection, authorities concluded that Mathew had shot Maria multiple times before turning the gun on himself. The nature of Maria's wounds contrasted with Mathew's single, seemingly self-inflicted shot, leaving no doubt as to who the aggressor was. The motive remains officially unclear, though the abusive history and recent tension suggest Mathew may have acted out of rage and possessiveness. Neighbors who knew the couple were stunned. Outwardly, they appeared happy and deeply in love. Maria Martin was known for her dedication to her job and her family. At just 14 years old, tragedy struck her life when her father was permanently paralyzed during a violent home invasion. That event deeply affected her and ignited a desire to protect others. As soon as she turned 18, she joined the police force to make a difference in her community. Her mother described her as joyful and compassionate, a free spirit who always stayed out of trouble and was loved by everyone who knew her. Maria was committed to peace, justice, and service, and she worked hard to be a source of light and protection in the world. The entire town of Livonia mourned the loss of two young officers. The police chief called it a devastating and senseless tragedy that shook the very core of the community. Maria Martin's life was cut short by someone she trusted and loved. May her soul rest in peace. If you haven't subscribed yet, please take a moment to do so. It truly makes a difference. By subscribing, you help these important stories reach more people, giving a voice to those who can no longer speak for themselves. Every subscription helps us shine a light on lives that mattered and the tragic truths that deserve to be remembered. And to those who have already subscribed, thank you from the bottom of my heart. Your support means everything. It keeps this channel going and ensures these powerful stories are never forgotten.